No money in vitamin D, and there is no person who's driving vitamin D. There's no company driving vitamin D. It's all grassroots. Now, I'll give you an example of how effective vitamin D can be. Starting on about the 20th of March in 2020, during a period of 6 weeks, 26 doctors died, working doctors died in the UK from COVID-19. I've got names, photographs of all of them. And of those 26 doctors who died, only one was white. All the others were African or South Asian ethnicity. It happened in Stockholm as well, that in general, people of African Asian ethnicity were dying in greater numbers than expected during the first part of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was always put down to socioeconomic deprivation. Now, the 25 working doctors who died were not socioeconomically deprived. They had good incomes, they will have had big houses, no overcrowding, no problems at all. They died because the only difference in them and the other doctors were they had dark skins, which do not produce much vitamin D. We know very well that they will have been vitamin D deficient. Now, I have two friends, a Professor Parag Singhal, who's a professor of endocrinology in Weston-super-Mare near Bristol in England, and the other is Professor David Anderson, now retired, former professor of medicine and endocrinology, who I've known actually for about 40 years. We worked together about 40 years ago, very briefly. Well, we got together knowing about all these doctors dying, these dark-skinned doctors dying, and Professor Singhal is the chairman, or the national secretary, I should say, of the British Association of Doctors of Indian Origin, called BAPIO. He therefore had the email addresses of all the doctors of Indian origin, but he also could link to people in a similar position to him of other ethnic groups of doctors, like, for example, the Association of Doctors of Nigerian origin, or think of a country, Pakistani origin, whatever. All these exist. And he sent a letter, did Parag Singhal, Professor Singhal, an email to all his doctors of Indian origin and cascaded that to the other groups, so that all doctors of ethnic minorities in this country received an email saying, take vitamin D immediately. Otherwise, you have a high risk of death from COVID-19. I provided the evidence from all the 25 out of 26. He had all the names of the doctors, and Professor David Anderson had a large supply of vitamin D, which he provided to any doctor who required it. Those deaths of Indian doctors stopped about 2 weeks after the letter from Professor Singhal, the email, went out to them all. It stopped abruptly. Within 6 weeks, 25 doctors dying, doctors of ethnic minorities. Since then, there was one in September 2020, and there was one in about September of 2021. That's all. Brought it to a halt.